You're a pharmaceutical company that invested in Microsoft Copilot to make your knowledge accessible across your organization, but your teams are getting incomplete, inaccurate, and outdated answers on the documents that matter most. In this video, I explain exactly why the system you were sold is not equipped to handle what your environment actually contains, and what a global pharmaceutical organization did to fix it. If your teams have expressed frustration with the quality of answers they're getting, they're seeing something that has been documented and reported on at the highest levels of enterprise technology. In fact, a UK government evaluation found that Copilot made certain tasks slower, not faster, because the quality of its outputs were too low to be trusted without significant review. And the Australian government ran its own trial and found that staff came away from the experience less confident that Copilot would help them at work, not more. These are not Reddit complaints or somewhere posted on the internet randomly. These are formal, publicly released government evaluations. If your teams feel like the tool is letting them down, they are observing something real. Copilot was built as a safe, controlled productivity tool inside the Microsoft ecosystem. It wasn't built as the precision system for the kind of complex, heavily regulated documents that define your industry. So when your team search your document library, the system only surfaces a small number of results before generating a response. And that's a problem. Across your thousands of clinical documents and standard operating procedures, most of your organization has built never gets considered. So your tables and structured layouts get scrambled when the system processes them, turning the formatted data your teams depend on into unreadable text. And on top of that, Microsoft tells you that the updated documents sync into the system with 2 to 3 hours. However, I can tell you that the people who've actually deployed this in large pharmaceutical environments know is that sync regularly takes up to 2 to 3 days. Again, your team are querying a knowledge base that is days behind your actual document library. In a regulated environment, that gap is not a technical inconvenience. It is a version control problem with compliance consequences. In a regulated industry, a knowledge retrieval failure is not a help desk inconvenience. Let's be honest. It is a compliance exposure. When your regulatory affairs team can't service the correct version of a procedure during an audit, or when your team act on an answer sourced from a table the system misread, your consequences are not measured in lost productivity. They're actually measured in audit findings, regulatory risk, and in the worst cases, patient safety. So you deployed Microsoft Copilot to prevent exactly that kind of failure. The knowledge layer underneath it needs to be rebuilt on your own infrastructure, with your own data and under your full control. We built exactly that for a global pharmaceutical organization managing over 1,200 complex scientific and compliance documents. Every table was intact, every document was accounted for, every answer cited back to its source. No hallucinations, no silent failures, no gaps. That system is fully replicable for your organization. And the thing is when most people hear this or have dealt with this problem, there's usually a couple different responses. Depending on how large your organization is, you could already have an IT team, you could even have an in-house AI expert. And what we found consistently is that it doesn't matter. There's actually a framework with which we use to actually help organizations achieve the results that we have had the opportunity to with a $10 billion pharmaceutical company. You see, it's not just knowing that this can work. In fact, I'm even happy to share all the ways that we improve the index and improve the system, but there's still a knowledge that has to be instructed, and there's still knowledge that has to go in order to orchestrate the back-end process. Some of the things that we've seen is that organizations will want to wait or delay, and so they'll go and do the research in order to try to fix this problem, or at worst, what's happening is during that time, you're losing productivity because you already know that your competitors or somebody else is utilizing AI in the proper way. Unfortunately, Microsoft Copilot has not made it easy. And because of that, what's happening is potentially people within your organization are taking the information that is within your business and then moving that outside into the public sphere, which is even worse. And so literally every day, every week, every month, that action isn't taken in order to just be able to utilize the information that you have in the proper way. It exposes you to incredible risk, but then it's also tons of lost productivity. Some of the key points in the way that you want to look at what's happening with Microsoft Copilot is Microsoft is actually juggling a number of different priorities when it comes to being able to generate useful responses. You would think that all AIs are created the same. However, this is a very good case in point that AI is actually only as good as you instruct it or as the context you give it. And so that's at the foundation. What we try to do is build a good foundation. And by building the good foundation, we're actually retraining the AI to know exactly what's in your organization, the documents, the intranet pages, the tables, the PDF files. And we're giving it instructions on how to index those, how to rank that information, what to take as priority, how to actually even digest that information and then represent it. And so when you go through that process of actually instructing the AI, you come out with a much better response. Again, the problem is that out of the box, Microsoft is just doing whatever it thinks is appropriate on a large scale. When you think about they have millions and millions of users, tens of thousands of organizations, they're trying to balance the needs of every single one of those people. And they're also leaving a lot on the table because they're having to prioritize enterprise risk or enterprise scalability first. They're also not giving you the best infrastructure, the things that actually power the AI. They're not giving you the best infrastructure that makes that most usable. And so you're just getting a plain vanilla sort of setup. And that's where we come in and really just dial in the infrastructure to make it so that way when we're done, you're getting the same experience as if you were using ChatGPT, Claude, or any one of the most famous LLMs at this point. It feels like when you ask it a question, it knows exactly what's in your repositories or within your databases. It has the full context. It's not just giving you just a few results. It's giving you results. The word is actually, it's not just based on keywords. It's actually based on the interpretation of words, also called semantic search. With that said, all in all, the responses and the results that the AI provides once we've gone in and modified that infrastructure is that they're much more relevant to, that's just something that we've been able to do and we've repeated those results. But the main thing to express here is that not moving to a different platform, that's not going to be the most efficient. You've already invested potentially millions of dollars into the Microsoft ecosystem. And so at this point, the best thing to do is not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Of course, that's a huge decision, or it's not even to layer on another tool. You actually don't have to do that. The best option is to allow your users, people within your organization, to use Microsoft Copilot the way it was intended, but fix the underlying infrastructure. And when you do that, it actually starts to make sense and you actually start to have a tool that you always thought should have been that, operated in that way. And so it's a huge time savings in terms of the efficiency, again, depending on the amount of employees or staff that are at this organization. When you compound, however many searches are being done by the number of employees, how often, daily, weekly, really every minute that this is not done, that there's lost productivity because it's becoming more and more commonplace for people to go to AI for answers, to be able to synthesize documents, to be able to write emails, do really a lot of the things that consume most of our time on a day-to-day. Of course, these are just the core things, but the good news is that once you take care of the baseline architecture, the possibilities are endless and limitless at this point. But the first step is changing the architecture and changing the way that Microsoft Copilot actually indexes all of your information. If you'd like more information on this process, I'd be happy to send you the use case and talk to you a little bit about your organization's needs. Thank you.